It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. Here's a question to start the show with. Why is it sometimes so hard to feel empathy for strangers?
Because you're stressed by them.
You're stressed by them.
Yeah. And I think this is something that, people don't think about a lot, but it's true.
This is Jeff Mogul. He's a neuroscientist at McGill University in Canada.
I mean, for most of the history of our species, we were living in groups of, 100 people or so. We knew all of them, and we didn't have empathy for strangers, but that was fine because we barely ever saw any strangers.
Which is why today, if you take any two strangers and you put them in a room together, as Jeff did in a recent study.
They weren't doing anything. They weren't competing in any way. But the very fact that you took two people and stuck them in a room and closed the door increased stress levels in both of them.
It increased their heart rates and made their palms sweaty because
you're trying to figure out if you can trust them. You're trying to see if you have anything in common. It's harder to relate to them, to talk to them when you don't have any familiarity.
This is Jane McGonigal. She's a video game designer, and Jane told us about Jeff's study.
A great new study that just came out a couple of weeks ago.
And Jeff wanted to test out the hypothesis that being around strangers creates stress, which decreases empathy.
They tested this by using your perception of pain if you both plunge your hands into a freezing cold bucket of ice water.
For 30 seconds, and then they immediately take their hands out and they give a rating.
And they would ask you to rate how painful it was and how much pain you thought the other person was feeling.
And so Jeff gave each subject the pain test 3 times. Once with a stranger in the room, both of them plunged their hands into the water. Once alone, nobody else in the room, and then one more time, but this time with a friend. And again, both of them plunged their hands into the water.
And what we found was if they were tested across from their friend, their pain was worse than when they were tested by themselves. But if people were tested across from a stranger, their pain was the same as when they were tested by themselves.
How does that make sense? Like, you would think that if you're across from your friend, it would be okay because your friend is there and it wouldn't be as painful because you're both going through this thing, right?
You would, wouldn't you? That's
right.
The amazing thing about it. And the only explanation is that the pain from your friend is adding to your own pain just a little bit, making your experience of your own pain worse.
This is a form of empathy called emotional contagion. And what Jeff found is that it happens between friends, but not between strangers. So the final question for Jeff Mogul and his researchers at McGill University was, could there be a way to reduce stress and create empathy between two strangers who had just met?
These researchers found that you can essentially reduce the level of stress that you have interacting with a stranger to nothing by playing Rock Band for 15 minutes.
Rock Band, the video game, of course, where you play plastic instruments.
You play the drums, I play the guitar.
They were working together for the same score.
It's a pretty cooperative game. And for 15 minutes you play this game together, you will then test at the same level of stress as you would with one of your closest friends.
So in just 15 minutes, if you played Rock Band with just a stranger, you would start to feel empathy toward them?
That's what we showed. So what was blocking the empathy effect in strangers was stress. And playing Rock Band together blocked the stress. Block the stress, the empathy can emerge.